Hi everyone, my name is Cuauhtemoc Hernandez. In this short video, I'm going to present to you my Capstone 1. And the topic of this little project is to do an analysis of the electricity consumption in the world. So like comparing among different countries and also correlating that with the GDP and the Human Development Index. This is mostly focused on visualization. There isn't much machine learning or anything like that at this point. It's a topic in which I'm quite interested because my field is engineering, more specifically nuclear engineering, so I quite like anything related to electricity generation. Okay, so let's start with the source of data. So I use these three following sources of data. First of all, the World Factbook, which is actually from the CIA. So from here, I was able to retrieve the electricity consumption per country, the GDP per country, and also the population of each country. Each of these sets was a separate CSV file. Then from this other website, the World Population Review, I obtained the Human Development Index per country. That data is actually from the UN, also in a CSV file. And finally, I used the list of countries in the UN that I took from Wikipedia. I just copy pasted that into a CSV file. Okay, now that we have all of that data, the challenge here was to find a way to put all of this together into one clear visualization. And more specifically, I wanted to show these 5 items into one graph. So I want to see the electricity consumption in a country, like the total electricity consumption of that country, the electricity consumption per person in each country, the population of each country, it's the GDP per capita, and the Human Development Index. So to do that, the idea that I came up with is to represent each country by a block. And the height of the block would be the electricity consumption per person, and the width of the block would be the population of that country. And the area of the block, that would be the total electricity consumption of that country. Because if you look at it, if you multiply the electricity consumption per person times the population, you get electricity consumption. So, for example, here we have country A, country B. Country B has a relatively low population but high electricity consumption per person. Country it's the opposite. It has a big population and a smaller electricity consumption per person, and both of them have about the same total electricity consumption for the entire country. And so the idea is to put all of the countries in one graph, each country represented by one block, and sort them from the shortest to the tallest. And by doing that, we get something like the things we see when we look at the distribution of income of a country, or things like that. So this is good for the electricity consumption, but we don't have any information on the GDP or Human Development Index so far. So I added a new graph just below, which actually shares the same x-axis. And again, I put the blocks representing each country. And I locate the blocks such that the blocks across the x-axis are the same country. And in this case, the height of the block would be either the GDP per capita or the Human Development Index, HDI. And because the blocks are already sorted by the electricity consumption, the order of the blocks in the GDP, they follow whatever is at the top. And that's actually the purpose. Okay, so now let's have a look at the final product first, and then we will go into the process of making it. So this is the final product. This is a static image. The graph is actually deployed on a website, and I'm going to open that website so we can see it in action. So this is the graph. We have the electricity consumption at the top here with the green rectangles, and the GDP per capita at the bottom. So the functionalities of these graph, we can hover over the rectangles and it will show us information on what country is that, and then the power in watts per person of that country, the population, GDP, etc. And we can also zoom in, and it's the two graphs. I'm sorry, the two graphs are connected. So when we zoom at in the graph at the top, it will also zoom at the bottom, such that there's always a correspondence between the rectangles. So Mexico, Mexico, Brazil, Brazil, etc. Yeah, the graph at the bottom also has the tooltip to show the information. We can also select a specific country by searching for it here. So for example, Canada. So when we do that, it highlights the country. We can see Canada is here. Canada has a low population, so it's a very narrow rectangle, but very high electricity consumption per capita. We can put more countries, so let's add the United States. US is here. Bigger population, slightly smaller electricity consumption per person. Overall, much larger total electricity consumption in the country. And now let's add Germany. You can see Germany here. And yeah, we can add as many countries as we want, compare them. It all becomes colorful again. And then finally at the bottom, we can switch between GDP per capita and Human Development Index, again with the same logic of the rectangles. Yeah, so these are the functionalities of this visualization. The general idea that I find it very interesting here is to see that the more we go up in the electricity consumption per capita, the more we go in the GDP per capita and also Human Development Index. Although we can see that the correlation is not like 100%. For example, if we zoom in this area where the countries have similar electricity consumption, sometimes we see cases where the GDP is very different from one country to another. So there are obviously other things to take into account. But yeah, that's essentially the main purpose of this tool. Okay, so now I'm going to show the process that I used to create that graph. So I have here the different steps that I had to go through. So I had to import the data, then change the labels of some of the columns. Then I had to ensure that there was a consistency in the names of the countries from the different data sets. Then I could merge all of the data into one single table. Then I computed new quantities like the electricity consumption per person, the GDP per capita. And then I also had to create new columns with the data for plotting, like the colors of the bars or the location of the blocks, etc. After that, I was able to create the figure. Then I added the hover tools and the widgets, and finally I deployed it to a website. So let me show you how this looks like in the Jupyter notebook that I use. So here's a Jupyter notebook in Colab. These are my CSV files with the raw data. So I start by importing the raw data. I print it to see what it looks like. Then correct the name of some columns because, for example, if this is value, this is value, we have to change it to the actual quantity. Compare the names of the countries. This took a little bit of work because not all of the data sets have the same list of countries. Some of them include some regions, for example, and some of them have missing countries if they don't have data. So I had to compare the names of the countries in the different data sets and correct them. So here's a dictionary to correct the names in some of the data sets. So once I had all of the data sets with the right names and the right column, with the right names for the countries and the right names for the columns, and I merged by doing an inner join and merge all of the data into one big table. Then I had to change the data type because some of the data was in string. I need to change it to a float. After that, I was able to compute the new quantities like the electricity consumption per person or the the GDP per capita, and every time I print the data to make sure it looks good. Okay, then I had to add more data to my table to put the dimensions of the blocks, because each block needs 4 parameters: the lower left corner, the width, and the height. And then I had to create label columns. This is for the hover tool, because I don't want to, if I go to my graph, when I hover over a rectangle, so I'm showing the, for example, for power, I'm showing a string, 121 watts per person. That's a string, it's not a number. So I have to create those strings in order to have this clean look at the end. I had to add the colors of each rectangle, and for each rectangle I need 2 versions. So the color when it's like this is like selected, and the color when it's unselected. So I add all of these colors, and then I'm able to build the plot. So I start with a static plot with the hover tool. So here I create the source, add my I have 2 figures, add the averages, and here's a hover tool, and then put all the labels, all the cosmetics. So I get a first version of my graph. Then I add a widget to select the countries. So here I had to do a little bit of I had to use this function to do some Java to be able to have the right behavior, and then finally add the widget to select between GDP and H and the Human Development Index. Add some space also here and at the top, so it looks good on the website. And that's the final product. You are welcome to have a look at it and chat with me if you have any questions or discussions or anything like that. Thank you.